What can you say about today's guest, Marty Hom? He has had quite a year, and we talk a whole bunch about that on this podcast. This year alone, the Stones, Olivia Rodrigo, Stevie Nicks, Shakira. I mean, just an insane list of work, and he's doing it again next year. So I love this guy, one of my favorite people out there, production manager, tour manager. He's done it all. And just one of the nicest guys there is, super big on educating younger people coming into the industry. We talk a whole bunch of that. So please enjoy today's podcast almost as much as I did. Hello, and thanks for joining me today on Geese of Gear, episode number 278. Today, a special mention for Behind the Scenes Foundation. Behind the Scenes and LDI are shining a light on mental health at LDI this year. They're helping to reduce the stigma and encouraging people to speak openly about mental health and substance abuse issues. Visit the Behind the Scenes Wellness Lounge in booth 1100 for daily presentations from tips on self-care to ways to make your workplaces mentally and emotionally healthier. You can also learn about Behind the Scenes Mental Health Initiative, extensive tools and resources, and receive valuable information to use yourself to share with your workspace or union hall. Narcan training will be offered on Sunday and Monday. Check out all of the details at www.behindthescenescharity.org. And today's episode is brought to you by AVL Media Group, one of the leading distributors of professional audio, video, and lighting equipment in North America. Please take a moment now to check out the following.
AVL Media Group, connecting the world's most trusted audio brands with professionals like you. From their large diaphragm studio or versatile handheld live performance mics, Aston microphones deliver clarity and precision. Lab Group and Power amplifies the world. From commercial installs to the biggest tours, Lab Group delivers. Turbo Sound's new Manchester line array, from intimate venues to major festivals, the perfect balance of power and clarity. From the M32 to the groundbreaking HD96, Midas consoles bring exceptional sound quality to regional bands, touring artists, and the largest productions in the world. Wharfdale Pro, engineered for portability and installation. Easy to transport, quick to set up, and available in powered and non-powered versions. Tannoy's commercial speaker range offers indoor and outdoor solutions in black or white, in-ceiling, on-wall, pendant, and innovative column speakers. With dynamic audio control, Tannoy's steerable arrays provide precision and adaptability, perfect for demanding acoustic environments. AVL Media Group, your source for industry-leading audio solutions.
Here we are. Welcome again to episode number 278. And so I wanted to make sure that you have taken the time to check out the last episode. I believe it's 277 with Bob Bonial. If you haven't heard it, please check it out. Lots of great stuff. As you know, I'm an AI geek, and he's beyond, way beyond me. Very smart individual, knows a lot about this technology, was doing AI before AI was really a thing, and definitely do yourself a favor and listen to it. I think it'll bring it all home for you a little bit. I know everyone's struggling to sort of understand the benefits and the effects of AI on our world, on our industry, and I think this will either scare the shit out of you or it'll make you a little bit more comfortable, but either way, I think you should listen to it if you can. Of course, LDI, as you hear this, hopefully you've heard this before LDI. If you haven't, then just ignore the next 45 seconds or so. But LDI is coming in a couple of weeks, a few weeks. Probably by the time you hear it, it'll be less than 2 weeks. And so one of the things, I've announced it before, we've talked about it. We're doing this new thing, Sarah and I, and with help from Scott DeVos, whose idea it really was on one of our episodes. But we're doing this new thing that hopefully becomes an annual thing called Dining with Dinosaurs. It is a lunch, sort of a lunch and learn, I guess, for people coming into the industry or even people who are in the industry and want to take advantage of a gathering of some pretty incredible minds and legends in our industry. And so that is on Monday, I believe, December 9th from 12:30 till 2. You can get tickets for that at ldishow.com. And I believe also your all access passes will also give you access to this event. I know it's going to be full. It's going to be a very popular event. I'm guessing next year we're going to expand the amount of people who can come to it because it's going to be great. It really is. And I'm not saying that because we're putting it on. I'm saying it because I'm actually really excited to have this many really amazing people in the same room sharing information with 100 or so people who are looking to gain that information. So for Dining with Dinosaurs this year, we're actually overbooked on talent, we'll call it. And in no particular order, we've got the infamous Mr. Bob Gordon, who, of course, rose to fame with Act Lighting, which is now Act Entertainment. He's retired now, but he's got some friggin' great stories and some really cool just learning stuff that he wants to pass on. Mark Fetto, who was just on the show a few weeks ago, has an incredible history and lots of experience in our industry. Patty Thurston, there's a name I bet a lot of you haven't heard for a while. Patty, of course, was very well known as part of the Obie Company, where she was an account exec for a number of years. Lots and lots of people she knows in this industry and know her in this industry. And of course, her husband, Scott Thurston, played guitar for so long for Tom Petty as well. Great lady. I'm really looking forward to seeing Patty. I literally haven't seen her in 15 or more years. Dave Shadowan, who just recently sold his company Sound Image to Claire, I believe. And, again, one of the founders and legends of the audio business in this country, Scott DeVos, who we spoke about earlier. And Scott has been on this podcast. Great guy. This was his idea, this Dining with Dinosaurs thing. Geezers of Gear just gets to take all of the credit for it, but I will always give the credit back to Scott. It was his idea. He brought up the name during one of our podcasts, and I ran with it. Jeff Ravitz, no real introduction needed there. One of the legendary lighting designers in both television, concert touring, lots of spaces. Super guy, incredibly knowledgeable. We're so lucky to have him. Cosmo Wilson. Again, not really much of an introduction needed. He's recently on the podcast. And Cosmo, of course, lighting designer and director for AC/DC, Aerosmith, Judas Priest, and so many others. And one of the greatest guys, one of the nicest guys in the industry. Barely a dinosaur, but certainly a dinosaur. And just a wealth of information and stories. Roy Bickle, I think one of the godfathers or grandfathers, however you want to call it, of rigging. And really going to be interesting to talk with him. He's never been on the podcast, so I only know him from his legend status. I don't know much about him. One of my dear friends and one of my favorite people out there, Howard Ungerleider. Again, 40-something years with Rush, almost 50 years with Rush, I think. Maybe even 50 years with Rush. A lot of years with Rush. A lot of great stories. Super dude. Happy to have him. Seth Jackson. Another great LD who's been around the industry a long time. He says that he's a dinosaur. I don't think Seth is a dinosaur, but, who knows? He's got some great stories and a lot of education to pass on. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think it's something like How to Become a Concert Touring LD, something along those lines. But his book that I have a copy of and I've read, it's a very easy read. I suggest you get it. It's such an excellent book. It's probably the only touring book that I've read that actually told you, don't shit on the bus. Bob Harmon. Bob Harmon is one of the great storytellers of this industry. Super guy. And again, super happy to have him. And legendary production manager Jake Berry. That was one that I was pretty excited about. So what a room of people this is. And we're adding one or two surprise names to it too that'll blow people's minds. So for a first year to be doing this, we're pretty proud of this list of people that we've put together. There are certainly going to be some people coming to me going, why didn't you pick me? I'm already getting those calls actually. And because LDI kind of clipped our wings and said you can only have X number of people. We wanted to have 30 people and they clipped us at 10 and I think we're up to 14. So we're trying to follow the rules and stay between the lines, but hey, there's a lot of really, really great people out there that are ready and willing to share knowledge and share stories with all of you. So going to be great. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Another big exciting thing has been this episode 271, which is now officially, this is the Mark Brickman episode. It's now officially the largest and most popular episode we've ever recorded, which is wild because Mark was on this podcast before, but I think it's just the timing, the fact that, he was currently out on tour with David Gilmour and just a lot of interest in that tour and just such an exciting lighting design. And we've talked about it a lot, but it is officially our largest episode now. So thank you, Mark, and congratulations to Mark and congratulations to the sponsors too, who got some extra value out of this one. And lastly, please continue to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. It's really the only thing that works to grow the podcast. We don't have much of an advertising budget, if one at all, so we're not doing any advertising. We're not doing any marketing. As you know, we don't have any swag to hand out, which hopefully that will change soon. That's one of the plans for 2025 is that we actually have enough sponsors so that we can build a budget to do some more really cool things like this Dining with Dinosaurs thing, like giving out swag at trade shows, like lots of things. So watch for that kind of stuff. But for now, please just like, share, subscribe, kick this podcast around as much as you can. We're starting to sneak outside of our little industry and get lots of sort of concert touring fans out there who are listening to the podcast. So that's awesome. Today's guest is a big one and has been one of the busiest and most successful guys, I think, since COVID. He has just absolutely crushed it. Marty Hom is a 40-plus year concert touring veteran who has worked with, get this, Barbra Streisand, Shakira, Bette Midler, Lionel Richie, the Eagles, Alicia Keys, Shania Twain, Janet Jackson, and Beyonce, and that's just a few of them. Marty was with Fleetwood Mac for 21 years, and hence my choice of t-shirts today. I am wearing a Fleetwood Mac t-shirt today. He was with Fleetwood Mac for 21 years, and I believe he toured with them, was it this year or last year? Most of those years as tour manager. Marty was last on the podcast back in 2021, episode number 128. You can either Google that or search on our website or search on Spotify, but he's out there. This year, Marty has been extremely busy on tour, managing the Rolling Stones, Olivia Rodrigo, Stevie Nicks, and Shakira tours. Let's check out what Marty's been up to the last few years. Please welcome Marty Hom back to the podcast. Mr. Marty Hom, good to see you.
Marcel, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always nice to see you as well.
I'm actually blown away that we were able to find this little time slot in your probably industry's most insane schedule.
You know what, Marcel, I'm home for the next 2 months.
Wow.
One of my clients postponed their tour from this year till next year. And I know it didn't make a lot of the fans happy, but I'm certainly happy about it. And
who is that? Which one is that? Which artist?
Shakira.
Oh, okay.
Shakira was supposed to start her tour on November 3rd or 2nd in Palm Desert, and we pushed back till 2025. So,
while you mentioned Shakira, who I've been, madly personally in love with since I was about, I don't know, a long time, since she started singing, probably.
I'll set you up, Marcel.
Well, no, it's not that. I have a girlfriend and she's listening right now, and she's way better than Shakira. But no, it's Shakira is just like, if I had to pick, the sexiest women alive, she's definitely in that short list, because that mix of, what is it? Is it Colombian and Lebanese?
That's correct. Yeah.
So the Lebanese belly dancer thing, and then the Colombians definitely know how to swing their hips and do all that stuff. I mean, her moves are just incredible.
She's such an incredible artist. I've been with her for about 16 years now.
Wow.
And I will tell you, out of all the artists, it could be close now, but she's probably globally one of the biggest artists I work for. Yeah, internationally. Yeah.
Well, and let's just remind people, that list includes Stevie Nicks, aforementioned Olivia, Beyonce. Who am I missing? Barbra Streisand or Bette Midler or something? No, I'm talking about the divas, the women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the women. Of course, the Stones. Yeah, but, I know I asked you this when we did a podcast before, but how is it that you get the world's top divas as your clients?
That's interesting, Marcel. Look, when I started my career in the late 80s, early 90s, it was really funny. I started working, the big pop tour I did. My first big pop tour was in 1990 with Paula Abdul. And then you get kind of stereotyped and locked in. And then the next tour after that, the next big female artist I did was Janet Jackson in 1995.
Yeah.
And then I went on to work with, Fleetwood Mac in 97. I worked with Shania Twain very briefly. And I think you just kind of get stereotyped into, that kind of genre of music.
Yeah.
And my career could have definitely taken a different turn. Way back in 1990, I did an English rock band called The Cult. And they were huge. And they were touring on the Sonic Temple album. And I remember doing that tour. And after I did that tour, I started getting phone calls from like Kiss and Cinderella and Poison. And so had I decided to take a left-hand turn and do those kind
very
of
different
rock acts, I could very well be still doing that. So,
yeah. Well, and I think the Cult were touring like theaters this year, and you were doing stadiums with Beyonce and all these other, Stones. And so I think you might have made some good decisions along the way, Marty.
Lucky
nothing
decision.
Against the Cult. The Cult are a great band, but, the longevity of some of these artists, the Stones, and even Stevie Nicks. I mean, geez. Stevie Nicks has to be in her mid-60s now, I would guess, right?
She is 77.
Oh, geez. I didn't know she was that old. Wow.
Yeah.
Good on her, man. She's still sounding great from what I hear. I haven't seen the show.
She does. She sounds better than ever. She sounds great. She still loves touring.
Wow. Good for her.
Went out and did a bunch of dates this year with Billy Joel. Very successful stadium shows.
Nice.
She just loves being on the road. It's part of her, nature, and she her DNA,
So, as a guy who's got a lot of experience doing stadium shows this past few years, especially, but do you have a preference? Do you prefer arenas or stadiums?
I'll take an indoor arena tour any day.
Really? It's that much harder.
Stadium. I'm getting too old to do those stadiums, man.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still love it and I still enjoy it. But doing an arena tours, you don't have to walk around as much,
Yeah, that's true.
Going from my office to catering is a much shorter walk in an arena than it is in a stadium.
You work up an appetite when you got to walk a mile to get to catering.
For sure.
Yeah. That's, so is that all this year? The Stones, Olivia Rodrigo?
This year I started with Olivia's tour, which started in February. We started rehearsals in Los Angeles in mid-January, and I did all of Olivia's North American tour. And then she was going to go to Europe, and then I jumped off to Olivia's tour to go to the Stones. I got Louis Soto, great tour manager. He took my place with Olivia in Europe. And then the Stones finished, and it was funny. They added an extra show, and I had committed to starting Olivia's tour back in the States again. And so I missed the Stones' very last tour. It was
Oh
in the
no.
Ozarks, and jumped off and started Olivia's North American tour. We finished that up in August, and then we just got back a few weeks ago from Southeast Asia and Australia.
So no Beyonce shows this year.
No, but Beyonce was all last year. I oversaw Stevie's tours this date. Shakira had a bunch of promo because she released an album this year, so that kind of kept me busy as well.
What a year, man!
Yeah, it was a crazy year for me.
You're killing it. Good for you, man. Good for you.
I'm just lucky, Marcel. I'm just lucky I have a job, you know.
Yeah, well, aren't we all, right? Like we're living a dream. But when you have an overlap like that, so I know production managers and LDs and front of house engineers and stuff who have to leave and go to another show and they're replaced for a few dates or whatever. But when you're the tour manager, especially with a female artist, do they not get a little bit upset when they have to change their tour manager mid-flight?
You know, that's a great question. I don't really know the answer to that because I've never gotten any feedback or repercussions on it. You know, I try to be upfront and honest and just tell people my schedule, right? And Olivia's folks, they knew that I had to leave to go do the Stones. And so I was, again, upfront. And again, just like, you know, I let the Stones know that, you know, before they had added this extra show, that I was committed to doing Olivia's tour.
Yeah.
You know, what was unfortunate for me this year, you know, I've been with Stevie Nicks for 27 years now. And although I oversaw the tour, I didn't get to go to a show this year. But I have guys out there who, you know, take my place and do a great job. I had a guy named Alan Tate and Ralph Vieira out there. Bobby Ayers, the production manager. And they've been with Stevie and Fleetwood Mac for, you know, 20-something years now. So,
yeah.
So they're very capable of running that tour and making it.
Well, plus, I guess for Olivia, like if you were leaving and going to do some dates with the Cult, that'd be a little different. But
right.
Hey, Olivia, I'm sorry, I got to go do the Stones stadium tour, you know, which
I got to tell you, Marcel, it's funny because on Olivia's tour, I'm definitely the oldest guy out there on the tour.
Yeah.
And on the Stones, I'm definitely on the youngest.
That's crazy. That is wild. Yeah. Cosmo called me one time, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. And he said, "You want to feel old?" And I said, "Not really, but what?" And he said, "All of Aerosmith are in their 70s now." Right. And I went, "What? No way." And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, all those iconic artists are getting older, you know, and
yeah.
And I don't know how many more tours they have left in them, but you know, I would encourage people to go see those shows. I mean,
absolutely. You know, I had Brickman on the podcast a couple weeks ago, or I don't know, a month ago, and he was like, "Marcel, you've got to get out to see this show because David Gilmour, there was only a handful of shows." And I was like, yeah. And then I'm, of course, in the background, I'm like, do I really want to go to New York, Madison Square Gardens to see a show? I don't know. But then, you know, you think about it and you go, really, this could be the last time you ever see any version of Pink Floyd. Maybe Roger Waters will keep touring, but this could be David Gilmour's last tour and his last shows. And so, yes, I want to go see it. And I was feeling that as I was watching it, too, because I didn't know. Again, you get older, but you don't think anyone else is getting older. So I didn't know David Gilmour. I think he's almost 80. I think he's 79, might even be 80. You know, he still sounded great. But as you know, just from being around Mick as much as you are, it's not easy for an 80-year-old guy to get on stage every day and do what they do, you know?
Mick is a phenomenon.
He really is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You know what it all comes down to, Marcel, hold on one second. You can edit this, all right?
No worries. Oh, is the dog knocking on the door? Let me in.
That was my idea. It's my little dog knocking on my door. Wanting my attention.
Nice.
What I was saying is that, you know, you look at these artists and they're so iconic and they're legendary, you know, and you know, like Bruce is out now and Stevie's still doing dates and the Stones are still doing dates. It's just incredible.
But Mick ain't mailing it in. You know what I mean? Like
No.
watching him running up and down that ramp, I was like, you got to be shitting me. This guy's almost 81 at the time. I think he's
No.
81 now.
You know what it comes down to with all these great artists? And I'm going to tell you what they have in common. You know, Mick, Beyonce, Olivia, they all have incredible work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, the reason they got to where they are is because of their incredible work ethic. And you know, that goes no saying with Mick. I mean, he is such on a regimented schedule.
Yeah.
He's amazing. You know, he's totally amazing.
You obviously got to see that on a day-to-day, right? Like I heard he did like ballet or yoga or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally see it on a day-to-day, but I know that he, you know, works out.
Yeah.
You know, he goes into a studio before the show to just warm his body up. He's just incredible.
He's a phenomenon.
In terms
Yeah.
of phenomenal how he takes care of his body.
Yeah.
Stays in such great shape.
Well, and these are people who were abusing the hell out of themselves, you know, 50 years ago or more. And to see this kind of longevity, I mean, maybe that's the secret is you got to do every drug known to mankind in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And you become pickled and you last till you're 100. I don't know. Maybe we're all doing it wrong. You know this health
you know
thing.
what? I was very, very fortunate, very lucky that I got all these artists after they had done, you know, whatever happened in the 60s or 70s. Because Fleetwood Mac, I started in 97, and in the Stones, my first tour with them was in 2021.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot. You haven't done the Stones for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was incredible. And what about Beyonce? You said she's similar to, like, she's got that crazy work ethic.
Incredible work ethic. I mean, she works like no other. I mean, you know, when she prepares for a tour, she goes into rehearsals, and again, it's, you know, you got to remember, I mean, you know, it's like building up to their stamina. You know, Beyonce's show was almost 3 hours. I mean,
wow.
You know, just to get in that kind of physical conditioning, you know, to get ready for a tour. And you know, there's a lot involved. I mean, you know, it takes your toll on your body going out and doing those shows every night, you know, and so.
She also seems like a really bright business mind. Like, I think it was Wiseman who told me that her mom is very involved, like her
mom's very involved
in her career.
And she is, you know, that's the other thing all these artists have in common is not only do they have incredible work ethic, is that they're all very, very smart. You know? They're all really at the top of their game, you know, intellectually.
Well, and they recognize the business part of the music business, right?
They all do. You know, Shakira, Mick, Beyonce, they all understand.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously super important. So you said you're off for a few months, but I think you're still involved in the super huge thing that you were part of the founding of the conference at Lidditz, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Coming up here in a couple of weeks, first week in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you started that thing, did you know that, or did any of you think that it was going to become what it's become?
No idea, Marcel. We're going into our third year. This year will be our third year. And I think when Jake, Charlie, Stewart, and I, along with our partners at Rock Lidditz, no idea what to expect. I remember getting on a podcast with you, with a few of my partners, talking about the conference. I mean, I remember the first year, you know, we put up 650 tickets for sale, you know, and maybe just, you know, a month, 2 months before, we had probably sold half of that, you know, concerned that are we going to sell the other half, which we did.
Yeah.
And last year we had 900 attendees and we sold out a couple months in advance.
Yeah.
And this year we're just going to be a little over 1,000. We sold out, you know, a few months ago. But you know what the conference has become is, you know, far exceeded my expectations. But more than that, it's not a conference that Jake or myself or Charlie or Stewart started. It has become a conference for the industry and for the community, really. And so I would say that it's really not our conference anymore. It's really the touring and live events conference, and it's just such a great event to be around. If you talk to people, you attended the first year, talk to people who went and attended, it's the camaraderie, the community, the live event touring community is very, very special. And I think when you all have those like-minded people at one place at one time, it's pretty electric, and so very proud of it, and hope it continues for many, many years.
It seems like it's a staple now. Like it's, you've got, what's the one called that's in Palm Springs in like
I think
January or February
Production
or something?
Live.
Production Live, yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're
Live
right.
Summit, yeah.
Yeah, and so you've got that one sort of on the West Coast, and then you've got this on the East Coast, but it appears that this has already completely dwarfed the Palm Springs one and is going to continue growing. So,
well, I think they're different too. I think there's a couple, things that when we started this, we set out to do was like, we weren't going to have any golf tournaments or anything like that, and we weren't going to have any award ceremonies.
Yeah.
Like really it was about, all of us getting together and trying to figure out how we can make the industry a better industry, how we can address, some of the things we need to address as a community. And that's, diversity and mental health and how do you, really try to recruit younger people into our business, which is crucial because people like myself are fading out. We're gonna get out of the business shortly, and you got to find those people to get it into the business to take our place.
Well, and I know you've been one of those guys who's always raised your hand when there's an opportunity to go out and share stories and educate, help to bring great people up into the industry, because obviously we have to do that. And, some days when I look around, I worry a little bit about the future. And then you meet some of the younger people who have had access to some of that type of education, and you go, okay, I think we'll be okay.
We're definitely going to be okay. You know why I do that? First, I do it because, the industry has been so great to me and so kind, and really has given me such a lifetime of memories and opportunities. But, I remember when I was getting into the business, I grew up in Northern California. I grew up in Sacramento, and we had a promoter from that area named Bill Graham.
Yeah.
And Bill Graham, I idolized Bill Graham. Like I wanted to be Bill Graham. And Bill didn't speak very often. Like I never got to hear Bill Graham speak in any kind of public forum. He just didn't really do it, right? And the one time that I saw that he was doing it, I tried to sign up. I couldn't get in. And so I think it's important for me to at least give back, to give back. And I tell people this, that my legacy is not, Fleetwood Mac or Stevie or the Rolling Stones. My legacy is all the people that I've had the opportunity to give an opportunity to be in this business, to do something they love to do and they're passionate about doing and provide for their families. That's my legacy. These young kids that are coming up behind me that I've worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a valid point. And I talked to you a little bit earlier. We're doing this thing at LDI this year called Dining with Dinosaurs. And, it's a funny take on the old people or the geezers in our industry. And at first I was afraid that people would be offended by that name, but I contacted LDI and I said, hey, instead of us doing this somewhere else at some other point, I think it'd be good to just do it at LDI when people are already there in Vegas for the show. But here's the name. Are you okay with it? And it was, do you know Ellen from LDI?
No, I don't. No.
So Ellen, she's old school, but she's a woman. And so I was like, it's called Dining with Dinosaurs. And she said, oh, I love it, but let me come back to you. I'm going to run it around the room. And I'm expecting when it's going to the committee, right, we're going to get slaughtered. She came back and said, everyone loves the name. They love the concept. They love what you want to do. We're in 100%. They canceled. They had an LD luncheon or something, and they completely canceled it and gave us the time and the room. And it looks like it's going to be like a perennial thing, So I think similarly, this was all about getting a bunch of people my age and beyond into a room. And we're doing it as a round table. So basically every table is going to have 2 or 3 dinosaurs and then, 10 or 12 individuals, most of whom will be younger people coming into the industry, students. But there's going to be a lot of people who aren't younger people who just want to sit at a table with, a Marty Hom and get your stories and your guidance and help and thoughts and everything else, right?
Oh, I love it. I think it's a great concept, Marcel. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. I love doing stuff like that too. Like I think once I hit 50, I started going, well, I guess it's time to start passing the torch, and so that's what I'm going to be doing for the next.
I just last week I was down in Nashville. I was asked to be the keynote speaker for this TCW Touring Career Workshop. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
Chris Lyle, and he's such a great guy. And what he's got down there, what he started, is such an incredible thing. And we had him on the podcast. We support that Touring Career Workshop. I think it's a great thing that he's doing. It is. It was a great thing. It was an honor to go down and speak, and
good for
awesome.
You. Yeah. So what was that event?
That event was their big annual Touring Career Workshop. Where they get 400 or 500 people to come in, sign up, and go to different panels and.
Oh, so it's like their conference or whatever.
It is their conference, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's really cool. Good for him, man. We had him on the podcast and we talked a whole bunch about it, and I love what he's doing there. I love that kind of stuff.
Great guy. Yeah.
If COVID taught us anything, which for the most part, seeing what our industry has been doing the last 2 years, COVID taught us nothing. But if COVID taught us anything, it's that we do need to be a little more organized, and we do need to share more of this information, and we do need to have, a little bit more of a foundation under and around us.
Yeah.
Because it can all fall to pieces pretty quickly, as we know.
Oh man, I remember getting on that first podcast I ever did with you back during COVID.
Yep.
We didn't have anything else to do except shoot the shit.
It was a shit show. Yeah, it was a shit show out there, man. And we talked about it, and you were doing some really smart things that. Again, there were so many really cool ideas that came out of it, like some of the things that you were working on. But, we didn't have time to get legs under those things. And then also, I'm not saying you, but most people lost interest in those side projects as soon as the main project came back, and it was like...
I definitely did. Like it was...
Yeah.
When we came back, Marcel, this, when we came back in 2021, it was crazy. It was
it didn't land soft.
And it's been that way for the last 3 years. Like, I have never been so busy in my career
Good
than
for
I
you,
have
man.
been in the last, 3 years. It's everybody wants to go touring,
Yeah. So is that a good or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. It's going to be interesting to see if that's leveled out, over the next, probably next year after, to see if it's kind of leveled out. But, certainly got a lot of people back to work pretty fast when we came back.
From most of the things that I'm hearing, this year was a tough year from a standpoint of at least most of the vendors were having a little more trouble staying on top of profitability and just keeping their head above the water this year. But that next year is just insane with the number and size of tours that are going out again. And next year is another big stadium year again. And, but then everybody's a little worried about the year after that next year's sort of going to be the last hoorah. And then who knows after that, but I don't know. I'm on a board of directors with, one of the Live Nation guys in a company. And, I was talking to him last week at a board meeting about this. And he was like, no, man, things are good. Ticket sales are strong and continue to be. And, we're pretty excited about the future.
That's what I see too. I see like this past year has been a good year for touring. I think next year is going to be a good year.
Good.
I think, we'll see in 2026 how it levels all out.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one of the challenges is going to be with all these big stadium shows and ticket prices being as they are, I think certainly you're going to maybe start seeing some pressure on those ticket prices, from the audiences who are saying, yes, I want to see Beyonce again, but I can't pay whatever Beyonce tickets are. I have no idea. But, and I'm not picking on Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Billy Joel, I don't care who it is. But, maybe their desire or ability to keep spending at those prices is going to dwindle a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems right now like we're in such a weird bubble right now where things like this Formula One race in Las Vegas and any of these sort of high-end, celebrity-filled, big money events are just going gangbusters. And I just keep thinking, did we really get that rich during COVID? Like, what happened? Where did all this money come from? It's interesting. It's an interesting moment in time.
Absolutely.
So the other thing that I read about is that you just got named to the board of directors for Music Cares, which I know is something that's kind of been important to you as well.
Something very, very dear to my heart. Yeah. They had 3 board seats open up this year. And once again, I'm probably referred to as others because the 3 board seats are filled by Irving Azoff, Corey Capshaw, and others.
Wow. Jeez.
No. It's
good
truly,
for you, man.
I'm honored.
That's a nice crowd to be a part of.
It is. Very, very nice. Very good company.
Yeah.
Music Cares is something that's very, very dear to my heart. I have been the talent producer for Music Cares event for the past 6 years.
I didn't know that.
More than anything, Marcel, I've seen how much they can help people in my industry, and hopefully, being named to the board, I can help advocate for the touring industry, for the live event industry, because there's so many people out there who are in need, and if I can help, facilitate their needs, that's
for those who don't know, what is Music Cares?
So Music Cares is the nonprofit for the Recording Academy. They do an event always on the Friday before the Grammys, and really they honor an artist, a band, either a band or a singer, and they honor them. So this past year in February they honor John Bon Jovi, and a lot of artists come and they sing Bon Jovi songs. So that night we had Bruce Springsteen was there, and Paul McCartney was there, and Melissa Etheridge, and a host of other artists, and they kind of pay tribute to John and the songs. And next year, happens, I think, the last week in January. They're honoring the Grateful Dead. And the same thing, they haven't announced who the artists are that will be appearing, but they'll, and when they announced it, Phil passed away a day later, I think.
Yeah.
After they announced it, so.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun.
Oh, it's a fun event. It's really fun.
When you're on the board, are you involved in putting together those events, or is it just more on the raise side and all of that kind of stuff?
I'm actually not sure, because we've got our first board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
I'll certainly find out.
Yeah.
I'm still going to continue to participate in the Music Cares event. It's always a fun event.
Yeah.
Year before last, we honored Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy. That was
fun.
a lot of fun for me because I'm an R&B Motown guy.
Yeah.
So we had Stevie Wonder and Lionel Richie and
super
the
cool.
Isley Brothers and the Four Tops and the Temptations and Dionne Warwick. All came and sang those old
fun
Motown classics. It was awesome.
Yeah, that is so fun. So that's cool. So that's in January, and then what's your first tour going back out?
Looks like my first tour is going to start in February. So I'm going to start with Shakira in South America.
Ah, fun.
And so I'll start with Shakira in Rio de Janeiro on February 11th, and I'll do most of her Latin America tour. And then, funny enough, Olivia's doing a South America tour as well. And so when I get to to Mexico City, I'll jump off Shakira's tour and get Olivia going.
So you got to polish up your Spanish for next year.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
you're gonna
get a good translator. You know, I
spend the
swore to
whole year.
myself since I started working with Shakira that I would learn Spanish. You know, and I started taking classes, and here we are 16 years later, and I'm
Oh, wow.
still lazy as ever.
Well, I have a sort of an extended relative. My girlfriend's daughter-in-law is a Spanish teacher. So
There you
if
go.
if you ever need a connection, I got a good one for you. She's
Awesome.
really good. She does remote classes and stuff. So
Oh, great.
yeah. So what else? What else? So what do you think? I mean, you talked about sort of where we're at today as far as ticket sales and concert touring's doing okay, but like my side of the business is obviously more on the equipment side, and we've started to see some signs of wear and tear. And, again, gangbusters 2021, 22, 23, 24 really started to get tough. And we're even seeing some companies that are struggling to get funded and, really in some pretty miserable shape at this point. From your purview, what's sort of the, if you were to put like sort of a health check on the industry, what would you think, as far as the production side of it more than?
Marcel, this is something I talked about at that TCW conference last week. And it'd be interesting to get your perspective on how you feel about this. Like, what's happening now, I think, is, like buses and trucks, those are the first things to like, if I get a tour, the first people I call is the bus company, right? And then the truck company's right behind it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, talking about this a little bit, you have these young artists coming up because you've seen, over the past year, you've seen a lot of these tours pull out simply because, the economics of it. They can't really afford to tour for whatever reason. They're not selling tickets. When we all started, Marcel, we started with these young bands and these clubs. And, I don't know if this is financially feasible for for the companies, but, it'd be great if they could maybe dedicate some of those older buses to some of these young bands that are trying to get started and need to go on tour because they need to expose the music to, their fans, right?
Yeah.
And so that's challenging because, not everyone can pay $600 a day for a bus, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm of the belief that one of the hardest things in our industry is that loyalty doesn't go very far, right? And that I'm a firm believer that if you start somebody's career, that you should hopefully be there at the end of their career as well.
Mm.
And so maybe, some of these vendors can wrap their heads around that, and get some of these, and support some of these younger bands.
Such an interesting point. I mean, it really is an interesting point. I never thought of it that way, but, my son's got a racing career going, and it's a similar problem, but in a sense, exaggerated greatly because, it's such an expensive sport to get into. And people think, well, why don't you just work your way up to Formula One? But the problem is to get to Formula One, I would estimate is probably about 18 to 20 million euro right now to get to Formula One. That's just to get to that point where you can be picked and taken into Formula One. To race the first season in Formula One lately has become almost 100 million euro, where these billionaires are showing up with their kid and saying, here's a decent driver and here's 100 million euro. We'd like to race a season, please, sir. And it's not sustainable. You have such a small selection who can afford that.
Well, I think what happens, you're right, it's not sustainable. And I think you have high turnover, I mean, really what we look for in our industry is consistency, right?
Yeah.
That a band's just going to get better played. They're going to start at clubs and they're going to go to theaters and they're going to go to arenas and then, and then let's see how far that takes them. But, very seldom do you have acts like Olivia. Well, Olivia, even on her first tour, did theaters before she went to arenas. So, there's growing there, and hopefully these vendors will figure a way to kind of wrap their heads around it and maybe, support these younger acts. And
Well, that's what I was getting to too, is sort of like a bench, like in sports, you'd call it a bench where you're investing in junior leagues or into this bench. And, because it used to be the record companies, obviously, who would invest in that.
Right.
They would pay for those artists to go out on tour and to promote themselves so that they could sell records. Well, that's gone. And so now they basically have to go out as a profitable entity. But maybe, I'll tell you what, maybe that's a whole investment strategy where you get these venture capital funds or whatever that put together these funds based on, we think this artist is going to make it, and we're going to pay for 2 years of touring for them to get to that point. And, you invest in 10 acts hoping that one becomes that unicorn that makes you back 100x on your money or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
I think what's important about that is you have to have people who are passionate about the music. Like
Yeah.
the reason I'm in this business, Marcel, is because I'm a music fan. That's why I got into it, because I started off being a music fan and still am today, right?
Yeah.
You can't have a bunch of guys sitting in a boardroom, deciding the fate of, they got to be fans. They got to be music fans, right?
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's funny because I had Doc McGee on the podcast at one point, and I said to Doc, so, I said, if my son, let's say my son is 17 or 18 years old, and he comes to me one day and says, Dad, I don't want anything else out of life. I don't want to do anything other than be a guitar player, a rock star, a recording artist. I want to dedicate my entire life to music, and this is what I want to do. And I said, back in my day, then that's what you did, right? And if you work really hard and you come up with some decent songs, chances are you're going to be okay and you're going to make a living doing it. But today, it's such a different dynamic. And I said, so what do I tell him? And he said, well, let me ask you a question. And I said, what? And he said, is he any good? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, because if he's just shit, I don't care, but if he's any good, it matters. And I said, yeah, let's assume he's really good. And he goes, well, he said, what did he say after that? He said, when I said, yeah, let's pretend he's good, he goes, well, because everyone's a bull rider until somebody opens the gate. And I was like, oh, that's such a cool, it's like Tyson said, what does he say? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
So, talent will carry you a little bit, but again, the racing thing is the same thing. Like my son's a very talented driver, but it doesn't matter because you got to be talented and have a huge bag of cash to go invest into one of these racing series, or, you're just not going to get anywhere. But I agree with you. And so the other dynamic, and you're probably much more knowledgeable on this than I am, but it seems to be some bands kind of tried to jump a step or to move up too quickly. And successful theater acts suddenly decided they were arena acts and then kind of got punched in the face and knocked back down to theaters. And the most famous being the Black Keys, I guess.
Yeah.
Who I think are an incredible band, but
they
didn't do well in arenas, but they do very well in theaters. Yep. And so what do you think about that one? Is that just corporate greed, or is that the band thinking they're better than they are, or how does that happen?
You know what? I think it's a combination of things, Marcel. I think, you kind of got to rely on the team. You got to rely on, your management. You got to rely on your promoter, and you got to make sure people are just honest and give you the right information, right? Now, they could have been totally off base. They could have said, oh, yeah, we're going to do fine in arenas, and come to find out. But, there's a lot of thought and process that goes into that, right?
Yeah.
Certainly Olivia, if she wanted to, could probably done some stadiums this year.
Yeah.
But purposely, we didn't want to do stadiums. We're going that time for Olivia will come. I think, I've told people that will listen to me that I think Olivia's the future. Like, I think she's got a long, big career ahead of her.
Sure seems like it.
So there'll be time, there'll be time. But don't rush into anything, right?
Yeah, yeah. So everything else you're doing, though, is stadiums, right?
For my other artist, or
yeah, all your other artists, yeah.
The Stones will be stadiums next year. Shakira will be mostly stadiums, some arenas next year. Olivia is doing her tour, encompasses really a lot of festivals. So all those are outside festival dates. So yeah, all three of those tours are going to be stadiums.
And Beyonce's stadiums.
Beyonce is going out next year, but I'm not probably going to be involved.
Oh, okay, because you're too booked.
Yeah.
Little too booked.
My dance card is a little filled next year.
Yeah. Well, I completely get it. Jeez. I mean, there's worse problems, right?
No, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. Yeah.
Well, and that choice that you've made, the decisions you've made, it's like, again, I was talking to Cosmo on the podcast a few weeks ago, and, he's obviously pretty bummed about what happened with Aerosmith. And, having toured with Aerosmith, I think 20 something years, I can't remember exactly.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah. And, also it cleared his schedule for the rest of this year, because he was supposed to go right from AC/DC onto that.
Marcel, the positive is, if he'd gone out with Aerosmith, he couldn't do the podcast with you.
And that's what I tried to tell him. As he was crying, I got him to wipe his eyes and go, "You're right. You're right." Not quite. I mean, he wouldn't be the first or last podcast that I've done, either from a tour bus or a hotel room, that's for sure. I do those all day long. But no, I mean, that's sort of, you're going to run into that at some point too, obviously, with the Stones. Like the Stones, as much as they think they can tour forever, I think there's obviously an expiration date on that at some point. Do you think that's the last tour next year?
You know what, Marcel? They're going to tour forever.
Yeah.
They continue to amaze me.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll see. We'll see how. I know that they love it. I know that they
Good
love
for
it.
them,
I know
man.
that they're playing better than ever. They sound incredible. So the question is, why stop?
That's true. That's true. Because it's, again, they're not just mailing it in. Like they're not, they're not just standing there going, "Can't get no satisfaction." They're actually running around. Like Mick just blows my mind. Every single video and everything. I never saw the show, but I've seen a lot of footage on it, and just blows my mind. So impressive.
Well, if they decide to do it, we'll have to get you to Europe.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Go to Europe to see the Stones. That'd be fun. I'll definitely have to. You're in Europe all next year with them, or for their tour anyway?
They haven't 100% decided if they're going to go or not, so they're trying to figure that out. So,
well, that'll be fun. What else? What are you doing? So you're home for Thanksgiving? You're home for Christmas? You're home for?
I'm actually not home for Thanksgiving. My wife and I are going to go on a little vacation. I owe that to her at least, so. We're going to go do a European Christmas vacation. We're leaving on Friday. We're going to go to London. We're going to go to Mallorca. We're going to Munich. We're going to do the German Christmas markets. And then we're going to go to Austria. So we're going away. And then I come home and go straight into the conference. And, look, I wanted to thank you for your help in the first year. The first year was incredible. You jumped on one of these podcasts with me and a couple of my partners, and
I believe in what you're doing.
And
I believe in what you're doing. I believe in anybody who's educating, younger people or helping younger people, not even younger, but just other people coming into the industry. Our industry, one thing is, we need new talent. We need a lot of it. Everyone still talks about how they're not just short on people, but short on good people. And, you got to promote that stuff.
That's all across the board, right? That's lighting, sound, video. I think part of that, Marcel, is really educating kids that these opportunities exist. I really honestly believe like people go to concerts, but they have no idea what it takes to, put them up and take them down. And so I think it's really about educating hey, look, there's all these different opportunities, all kinds of different, you're into lights, you're into sound, you can go into tour accounting. I don't let people know that exists,
Well, who's training tour managers? You know what I mean? Like, where are new tour managers coming from?
Look, funny enough, I've found some great people at the conference. One of them was a young lady named Andrea Espinoza, who we hired to do Beyonce's tour last year, and she started Olivia Rodrigo's tour with me this year. I mean, they're out there, and you can find them. You just have to, really look. Dale Skurseth hired a production coordinator from the conference last year.
Wow.
He did this speed dating thing, and these where people got to spend 10 minutes with some of the top production managers in the business, and they rotate. And he really liked this young woman, and he hired her to come out with us last year.
That is so cool. So there are actually job opportunities going to this conference.
There are.
That's unreal.
You never know who you're going to meet at the conference. They're going to give you a job,
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a really cool little side benefit to doing that.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny on that a minute. Like, we've encouraged some of our sponsors at the conference to offer, like scholarships, right? And so, what we've done is during the process of this year, I met a lot of people who ran for me on the Stones or either Olivia. I'd spend 2 or 3 or 4 days with these young folks, and you never know who you're going to sit in the van with, right? And I try to find out about them and what their hopes were for their career. And so I was able to recommend, and then I spoke at a couple classes. I spoke at a UCLA class. I don't know if you remember Stig Edgren, but he teaches.
Yes, of course.
So Stig teaches at UCLA now, and I spoke for his with his class. Met some young students out of that class, and so out of my tours this year, I was able to meet these young folks and recommend them for these scholarships. And I think 7 or 8 of the kids I recommended got scholarship opportunities for either, the sponsors would pay for their travel, give them a travel stipend, their ticket, and, get them to the conference. Others, paid for their ticket, to get in.
So cool.
So, really it's about just, like anything, Marcel, it's about being given an opportunity. Like I was given an opportunity 40 years ago.
Yeah.
People just need to be given a chance, an opportunity. And then it's up to you to prove that you want to be here, that you want to do this.
Well, but also, and, blowing our horn a little bit, it requires marketing, because I think, like you said, when people look at a show and go, whoa, that's so cool, but they don't understand what it took to put it together, how many people were involved in that tour, all the different roles of those people. And I think they look at us, or at not so much me because I've never really toured, but they look at our industry as a bunch of carnies or gypsies or something. And they don't really realize that that's a career that, here's a successful guy here, Marty Hom, who's made a very good living and a very nice life from touring with bands for the last 40 years. And I know a lot of LDs who make loads of money and front of house engineers and
I'll tell you a funny story. When I first got into it, first of all, for me, a third generation Chinese American to get into touring business was unheard of. Like it was
a bit of a stretch. Yeah, a bit of a stretch.
So, my parents were very strict, and my mom was a tiger mom, and their hopes were that I was either going to be a doctor or an attorney, and and look, I want to do something I really love to do. Like we want for all our kids, Marcel, we want them to find something they love to do and they're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
We just don't want them to have a job, right? So, at 28, I decided that I was going to move to LA, and I saved enough money for 2 years. If I didn't make it, I was going to go back to my family grocery store business in Sacramento. And, my then wife said to me, how much can you possibly make touring with bands?
Yeah.
And I thought hard, and I got a little calculator out. I went, well, I think in a good year I could make 35 grand a year.
Yeah.
Right. And look, it's been an amazing ride for me.
I think you might have surpassed that just a little bit. So I think you've done okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the equipment industry, I'm still making 35 grand a year. So, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because I was talking with Sooner Ruth here about this, where, she said the problem is that so many people look at our industry and they either think I could never do that, or they think, I need a real job where I can actually make 100 grand a year. And you can come into our industry and fairly quickly make 100 grand a year, especially now when everybody's short on people, and you can see the world for free and get paid to see the world and meet a lot of really interesting lifelong relationships. And I mean, it's an incredible industry. It really is.
All those things you just mentioned, Marcel. We fly you around the world. You meet it's so great. I can't really stress to you the community, the touring community itself.
It's insanely cool. Yeah.
And really what it takes is it just takes great work ethic. It takes a great attitude and great work ethic. And anybody can make it in our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, the attitude, the ability to get along with others. I think for some people, like I know for me, I'd struggle living on a tour bus with, 8 other people or 7 other people or whatever.
I'm kind of over the tour buses. I don't do that.
I know. But I'm just saying someone coming into the industry, you'd have to be, it's like my son, this was a learned talent for my son. He's 20 years old now, but, when he lived with his mom and dad full time and he's lived in England 2 seasons to race over there and stuff. So he's had to learn to live on his own now, or to live with a team, or to live with his crew members or whatever. And so he's figured out, I can't just leave my shit laying all over the bathroom. I can't just make a mess everywhere. If I cook something, I have to put the garbage away or wash my dishes. So he's learned those skills. But I think some people just getting onto a tour bus for the first time, they're going to be in a bit of culture shock, perhaps.
They'll learn really quickly.
Yeah.
And the people in that bus with them will teach them.
Yeah. Seth Jackson, I was talking about this actually in the intro. Seth Jackson did a book 2 or 3 years ago. I think it's called How to Be a Successful Concert LD or something like that.
Yep.
And he did a whole chapter of, your first tour on a tour bus,
Right.
and the do's and don'ts of living on a tour bus. And I found it so interesting because A, I've never done it, but B, where else are you going to learn that other than going out and pissing off a lot of people on your first tour and doing all the wrong things?
Anytime you want to go on a bus, Marcel, you let me know.
Marty, I think I'm good. I don't even like Holiday Inns anymore, so like I'm pretty spoiled at this point in my life. Like camping is, I got two double beds in my, Hilton hotel room instead of a king bed or whatever. Like that's roughing it. But no, I think I'm good. Well, I look forward to seeing you. I wish I could come to the conference this year, but it ends on like the 5th, and I'm in Vegas on, I think, the 6th for LDI.
Yeah, it's a bit of an overlap. And we looked at that, and, for our 3 years of existence now, we've always done it the first week in December. We changed because we used to do it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we kind of did it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this year. Because I know people will like to travel and get back home on Fridays. So
right,
look, we'll get you out there one year, whenever you want to come.
No, I'd love to come again, and I think it's a killer thing that you guys are doing. I think all these things you're doing are amazing. You're living a dream right now, my friend.
Marcel, if you ever want to do a podcast, come and do podcasts out there for 2 or 3 days.
That'd be fun. That'd be really fun, actually. You know what? We should plan that for next year. I'll come do podcasts the whole weekend, or the whole few days of the show. I'll record some podcasts. That'd be fun. I'm sure they could spare a little studio room somewhere to do it in.
We'll get you a little studio. That'd be
fun.
Great.
Yeah, we'll do that next year.
You got all kinds of people to choose from.
I know. No, that's the perfect place to do it. I've done it at LDI a bunch of times where I did a bunch of podcasts, but I've got meetings and stuff for my business at LDI too. which
Yeah.
I would have at the conference as well. But no, that'd be excellent. I'd love to do that. We'll do that next year. I'll remind you of that at some point during the year.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything, and enjoy
Marcel,
your
thanks for having me. It
Thanksgiving
is always
vacation.
a pleasure and an honor to see you. And
Likewise.
it's like when I talk to you, it's like just two old friends getting together, shooting the.
Well, yeah, even though we haven't been friends for very long, but I love talking with you. You're a very kind and well-loved soul, and everyone I know in the industry thinks the world of you and loves to work with you. And
I don't believe in any of it. It's all bullshit.
yeah, yeah. Well, generally, when I can't find shit on people, they're generally pretty good people, and the only thing I've heard about you is you're tough but fair.
I think that's
You're
my
tough
motto.
but
Yeah,
fair.
exactly.
Tough but fair. And that's what you want to be in life, right? Is tough but fair. So just like you want to raise your kids.
Exactly.
All right, my friend. Have a good one.
Marcel, great to see you. Thanks.
And you.